Check. I think it's working. It's recording. Hi. I don't know if anybody's out there yet, but we're just trying to make sure there's no technical difficulties. And my beautiful assistant is here getting up my other computer. This is my partner and my daughter. Her name is Suzette, and it is wonderful to be here tonight. Can you guys hear me okay? I would really appreciate if somebody can just type in the chat that you can hear me. Um, we were having some difficulty with some audio earlier today, and I just wanted to make sure that people can actually hear me. And when you do that, if you can make sure that it goes to all panelists and attendees. Yes, thanks, Robin. Thank you so much, Stacy. Oh, great, Stacy. Wonderful. It's good to hear. I'm so glad you're here, Stacy. I'm glad you made it. Um, I've got to figure out one more thing now. I need to figure out how to get this off of my screen. Uh, press the chat button. See, you got to learn how to do these things a little bit at a time. Wonderful. And we're going to wait a couple minutes for, well, not a couple minutes, just a few minutes. So I have on purple tonight. It is in honor of the Alzheimer's, September is Alzheimer's Awareness Month all over the world, in case you did not know. And so in honor of this being a talk about dementia, I thought I would wear my purple tonight. So I am going to, let's see, I'm going to start to share my screen just so we can start early, start this process. And bear with me, this is my first time doing this. So sometimes, when you learn new things, especially at almost 50, you get to make a couple of mistakes. But that's okay. I don't mind making mistakes. Won't be my first time, won't be my last. And so, yes, thank you, Suzette, for letting me know that it's actually sharing the screen. So wonderful. We want to wait a couple more minutes for a few more people to join us. So I'm excited about this. This has been a project that I've been wanting to do for months now, actually. I've been on the dementia website, the Alzheimer's and Dementia support group for, probably, I don't know, 8-9 months now. And in talking to a lot of people all over the world, I've started to realize that there's a significant lack of resources and information available out there to people. And so this is my way of trying to make a difference in the world. So anyhow, great. So I'm going to start. I want people to put in the comments. Can you tell me where you're tuning in from? I have a bunch of friends from South Africa. I will be very surprised if anybody from South Africa is on in the moment, because it should be about 2 o'clock in the morning there. So I'm hoping that they are sleeping and not having trouble at home with their loved one who has dementia. So please put in the comments where you're coming from. Hey, Stacy from Mississippi, Asheville. Hey, Barbara, wonderful Houston. And Suzette from Johnson City, who's actually in Greenwood, South Carolina tonight. Anybody else from, Charlottesville. I've been to Charlottesville. Hey, Steve and Mariana. Hey, that's great. So Steve and Mariana are my daughter's husband's grandparents, and so that's kind of sweet. I'm so glad you guys are joining me. And Mom's in Scotland. Hey, Mom in Scotland from Chris. Great, wonderful, wonderful. So we're going to get started here in a second, and I'd like to thank everybody for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it. It's kind of fun doing this the first time. I actually thought I would be way more nervous than I am, so I don't know what that actually says about me, but anyhow. Let's see. So tonight I want to value your time, and I want to make sure, hey, from North Carolina, there's a couple people from North Carolina and Texas. That's cool. And California. Min is from California. That's great. So I want to make sure that you guys are in the right spot and that you understand what this webinar is about tonight. So this webinar is for you if you're providing care and support to somebody with moderate to severe dementia. And tonight I'm going to share 6 tips and techniques that you can use almost instantaneously if you need to boost your confidence and effectiveness in caring for your loved one with moderate to severe dementia. So that's what this webinar is for. It's for people who are taking care of somebody with moderate to severe dementia. And we're going to go over the stages of dementia, and we're going to compare two different scales. There are a lot of different scales, but we're going to go over and compare two, because on the Alzheimer's website, the support group, most people are talking about the one, and there's another one that's commonly used. So we're just going to go over those two real quick tonight. And we're going to go over 6 tips and techniques that you can use to ease your caregiving journey. Obviously, without knowing each person and each person's circumstances specifically, some of this may or may not be related to your specific circumstances, but certainly the information is applicable to a lot of different people in this journey. And if you stay until the end, you're going to have heard about the dementia roadmap that I have developed to give you a proven and safe result to support you in your caregiving journey. I've been working very hard in the background trying to figure out a way to get people access that's reliable and right at their fingertips, and I think I've come up with a way to do that. So if you stay until the end, I hope you will gain some confidence in your caregiving skills and learn how to reduce your stress, even if it's just by a little bit. And if you stay until the end, you're going to learn a way to get all of your family members on the same page so that you can provide the best care for your loved one. That's probably the single biggest thing that I hear people messaging and saying is that they struggle because their family members or other people don't understand what they're going to. So in the dementia roadmap, there's actually a tool that's helpful to try to help get family members and caregivers on the same page regarding their loved one and what stage of dementia their loved one is. So that's hopefully what we're going to be planning on going over tonight. And I'm going to show you how to get to the dementia roadmap. And like I said, it's designed to be used on any mobile device as long as you have internet access. Obviously, you can use it on a computer, you can use it on a laptop and on a tablet, but my purpose behind this was to make it at your fingertips so that you could use it literally anywhere in the world as long as you have Wi-Fi or internet access and be able to get the information that you need regarding how to take care of somebody with dementia. So that's kind of where we are. In order to be successful, to have success in this program, you obviously have to have a loved one or somebody that you're taking care of with moderate to severe dementia that actually lives with you or lives with another family member. This is not a tool that's necessarily designed for people who are in a facility like a nursing home or an assisted living or a memory care unit, because the caregivers there are trained in how to handle people who have different kinds of behaviors or different kinds of issues starting because of their dementia. So this is specifically for people who are still living at home. Hopefully, if you have somebody who has moderate or severe dementia, they're not living by themselves. I work in home health. I can tell you that that is not always the case. Unfortunately, there are ample people who are living at home alone with moderate to severe dementia, which is a very scary thing. And in order to be successful in this program, you need to be willing to use an online learning program or platform. You need to be willing to change how you do things. Things, have to be done a little bit differently. Sometimes we get into a loop and we have a tough time changing how we interact with our loved one, and you have to be active in your loved one's care. So in order to be successful. So how many of you guys have experienced the following? Oh, let's see, Miss Barbara, what do you say? You're not a caregiver to anyone at that stage, but my clients so many times, or my clients are caring for someone is. I look forward to learning from you to help them. Yes, of course. That's why we're here. This is for all of you. If you have questions, please type them in the comments. I will try to answer questions definitely throughout, but definitely at the end. So go right ahead. I have another computer here that That's why I looked down to the side in case you're wondering. So if you have questions, please, please, please. And if I don't answer them, it's because I got sidetracked, and then my daughter will have to come yell at me and say, "Mom, answer the question." So, how many of you guys are feeling this? That you have a loved one with moderate to severe dementia and you don't know what to do or don't know what to expect next, or you don't know what the stages of dementia are or what they mean for your loved one, or you don't know where to find the practical information related to the common self-care problems like bathroom accidents or bathroom issues like not taking a shower. Those are a few of the very common things that people struggle with, especially are related to the research has shown that probably the biggest reason people are admitted to a nursing home or an assisted living facility is because of incontinence or bladder and bowel accidents, probably more bowel accidents than bladder accidents. So how many of you want to be able to help your loved one but don't know how? Or don't know when it's time to stop your loved one from driving? How many of you are frustrated because you have limited available help right now, especially due to COVID and COVID restrictions? I've spoken to numerous people all over the world. There's a woman I correspond with in South Africa who has not had any help at all because home health is not allowed to come out because of COVID at all. So her mom is got end-stage dementia and she is home alone and doing the best that she can and does not have the resources needed to take care of her mom. Um, how many of you are frustrated because you need help to help your loved one physically, but don't want to get hurt in the process and don't know how to do it correctly so you don't get hurt in the process? You know, right now, when you're taking care of somebody who has dementia, we only have one person that we're helping. Yeah, under normal circumstances. I mean, some people take care of two people, but if you get hurt physically, not only do we now have one person that needs help, but now we have two people. So part of this is try to teach people how to take care of people physically without getting hurt themselves. Um, how many of you are frustrated because you don't know whether your loved one is still safe to live at home alone? There are a couple of easy tells in order to be able to say somebody is still safe to live at home alone. I know this is a touchy subject. People want to stay home. I get that. My job is to try to keep people at home as long as possible. And people can stay home for a lot longer if they have the right support. How many of you are frustrated because you want to keep your loved one at home, but want to know how to do it safely and don't know how to do it? Or don't know where to find reliable and trusted information regarding how to provide safe and effective care while in the same time reducing your own sense of uncertainty and feelings of being overwhelmed. I know taking care of somebody with dementia is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week job. I have been talking, like I said, to people all over the world. I have been in contact with people from Australia, from South Africa, from Singapore, from the Philippines, and I can't tell you how many times I've had calls set up with them and the person's unable to get on the call, and I realize it's because something's going on with their loved one and they cannot stop their care right that moment, and I certainly understand. So I want this tool to be something that people can use whenever they need, at whatever time they have available to themselves. Um, and here's a big thing. You don't know how to get your family on the same page regarding your loved one's abilities, especially when people are taking care of somebody at home 24 hours a day. Obviously, they see how the person's doing 24 hours a day. And people who come visit or family members who come and visit or some friends who come around may not see the same thing that you are seeing when you're taking care of somebody 24 hours a day. They don't see the sundowning. They don't see the bathroom fights. They don't see the pickiness on eating. They don't see any of those other things because, of course, when family comes to visit, things are not normal and things happen, or frustrated because you're tired of your family being quarrelsome and resenting your family because they don't actually understand what it is that you are seeing with your loved one every single day. So these are the frustrations. So this is one of my favorite photos in the entire world. This is one of my reasons for doing this. This is actually my grandmother, and she passed away in October of 2016. And the last several years, she lived in a nursing home, and she developed dementia in her later years in her life and was very healthy up until, the latter years of her life. This was the last time I saw her. She lived in South Africa, and her birthday actually would have been today. Today would have been my grandmother's 98th birthday. So I am part of this is part of my reason for doing this. So this is me and my 94-year-old grandmother the last time I saw her. This is also me before I started on my own journey in the other passion that I have, which is working with people to prevent dementia. And that's not a topic that you actually hear a lot about right now. There's a lot of research coming out that there are actually things that we can do to reverse and prevent dementia, but it's not something that's popular, and it's not something that a lot of doctors are talking about because it's a lot newer research and it's not very well known right now. And so since this photo was taken over 3 years ago now, 4 years ago, um, I actually, in since December when my daughter and my son-in-law got married, have lost about 30 pounds just changing the way I do things because I don't want to get dementia myself. And diet is actually something that is being shown more and more every single week and month to actually make a difference in your cognition. So if you want to know more about that, I would love for you to reach out and speak to me about that too. And so yet again, this is actually a picture of my grandmother's facility. She lived in a frail care facility at that point, so it was kind of like a nursing home, but a little more like an assisted living. Their staff ratios were a lot less than they are here in the United States. So I took a photo just as comparison for some therapists here in the States because I kind of thought it was interesting. Got an itchy nose. All right, and there's my grandmother. And so thank you for watching and learning a bit about my grandmother. And I am going to start the actual presentation. Any questions so far? Does anybody have any questions? I'd love to have interaction. I'd love to hear if people have questions going throughout this process tonight. So, all right. I'm not seeing anything pop up. Whoops. All right. So comparing the dementia scales. So the first one we're going to talk about is the FAST scale. Sometimes you'll hear people talk about the modified FAST scale or the functional assessment staging test. This is the one that is probably the most commonly out there for most people. It's 7 stages, and then when you get to the modified stages, they include 7A, 7B, 7C, those kinds of things. So stage 1 is where most of us should be, hopefully. We should be normal functioning adults with no functional decline. Stage 2 is a normal older adult, somebody who may start to have some personal awareness of some functional decline. Somewhere between a stage 2 and a stage 3 is where I would say people are probably what would be called mild cognitive impairment, which is a pre-dementia stage. It's not a dementia stage, but it can be a pre-dementia stage. But in stage 2, people may have subjective awareness that they're starting to have some not normal forgetfulness or not normal memory. And this can last an unknown period of time. Then the third stage is early dementia or early Alzheimer's. And I'm going to take an aside here real quick. I'm just going to explain something. Dementia is an umbrella term. So if you think about it, dementia is an umbrella term. So under dementia, you have different types of dementia. Alzheimer's is one type. You have Alzheimer's and say Lewy body dementia, and you can have frontotemporal dementia, or you can have reversible dementias, things because of like an infection or UTI. So the term dementia is an umbrella term. And when doctors tell somebody they have dementia, they use the term interchangeably between Alzheimer's dementia and other dementias. At the beginning, sometimes it's not that easy to tell whether it's one type of dementia or another type of dementia. But truly, the only way to diagnose Alzheimer's dementia, which is the one that's the most well spoken or well known, for lack of a better word, is by autopsy. So they've actually shown, the newer research has shown a lot of people who have been diagnosed with Alzheimer's dementia after they pass away and they actually do an autopsy. They had cognitive impairment, they had cognitive changes, they may have had dementia, but it wasn't necessarily Alzheimer's dementia. So stage 3 is early Alzheimer's disease. This is when we start to notice things. People may be still working independently. They start to have changes in their job. They may start to forget things or they make mistakes at work. And this process can last several years. I can't actually see what my number was underneath there, but this process can actually last up to probably 2 to 5 years. Stage 4 is mild Alzheimer's. So people start to really need help in complicated things, the things that we therapists call the instrumental activities of daily living, or IADLs, things like cooking and cleaning and driving and medication management and financial management and planning your daughter's wedding or planning a big party or things like that. So these are the higher level thinking processes. So that problem with mild Alzheimer's typically lasts about 2 years. So those are the first 4 of the 7. So stage 5 is when people start to have more difficulty with choosing proper clothing. It's the mild to moderate phase of dementia. They start to, this duration of this phase is typically about 1.5 to 2 years. So stage 5 is what I would typically call moderate dementia. Stage 6 and 7 is what we would call moderate to severe dementia. So stage 6 is moderately severe Alzheimer's dementia. People start to need physical help with getting dressed, with taking a bath, with going to the bathroom. This is where people also start to have bowel and bladder problems. Bowel and bladder problems tend to start first, and then over time people start to have trouble with bowel problems. This can go anywhere from 3.5 to 9.5 months. I've seen people in this stage for a lot longer than that as well. Just remember, the better people have care, the longer they live. So this phase can last for several years. I've seen people in this phase for several years. Stage 7 is severe Alzheimer's. Here is where people really start to have difficulty with speech, where they only say 1 or 2 words. They may not say a full sentence. They have lost the ability to walk, to sit up on their own, to smile, to hold their head up. They cannot feed themselves. They cannot dress themselves. Sometimes they'll be able to hold their arms up for you to help them get dressed, but they are in the very end stages of their life. And most of the time, people with severe Alzheimer's, if they're living at home, they may tend to be bedridden, entirely bedridden. If they're in a facility where we have a little bit better equipment, not that we couldn't get equipment at home. I don't want you to think that you can't get equipment at home, because you can. But for people who in this phase and at home typically are bedridden, in a facility, they may use a lift to get them in a chair, a seating system, or something like that. And yet again, the better people have care, the longer this can last. Typically, though, this is about 1 to 1.5 years. So the next stage, or the next scale that we're going to talk about is the Clinical Dementia Rating Scale, which is a 4-point scale: mild cognitive impairment, mild dementia, moderate dementia, and severe dementia. So mild cognitive impairment, yet again, is something that people start to have notice. So actually, before you get to mild cognitive impairment, there's another phase. It's called subjective cognitive impairment. That's where I think I'm having trouble thinking, but when I do a test, it's not actually showing it. And then when you get to mild cognitive impairment, that typically lasts about 7 years, 5 to 7 years. It is the pre-dementia phase, or it can be a pre-dementia phase. The sooner you start to work on these things, the less likely it is that it will actually turn into dementia. There are things you can do in a mild cognitive impairment phase if you're willing to make massive changes in your life to prevent it from getting worse. Memory problems are slight but consistent. Typically, people start to have difficulty with time management, problem solving. Daily life is a little impaired, but for the most part, they can still function on their own. They can do all of their usual personal self-care skills, and this can last up to 7 years. The next phase then is mild dementia. So here, memory loss is way more impaired. It's about moderate impairment level, more for recent events and things that start to interfere with daily living. So if you think about your brain like an onion, this is really not a great description, but layers on the outside, it's a great description. It works real well. So the things that we do that we call the instrumental activities of daily living, or the things that we use for our routine remembering things throughout the day, where I put my keys and things like that, go into your little working memory. And so the working memory, you actually that's where you put things before you store it in your short-term memory. So when people start to lose their working memory, they start to have memory loss. And so our brain is designed to do one thing and one thing only. From the time we're babies all the way through an adult, when we are born, the first thing that we do is we start to breathe, we regulate our temperature, our heartbeats. So our brain is designed to keep us alive. So as we start to lose our memories, or as we start to lose our thinking processes, it's the higher level stuff that goes first, because we don't need that stuff to stay alive. We need to have our heart pump. We need to have our body temperature regulated. We need to be able to eat. We need to be able to feed ourselves. So if you think about the stuff that we need to be able to do to run a household and things like that, is the outer layers of the onion, and all the way the inside of the onion is the part that keeps us alive, the breathing and those kinds of things. You'll kind of start to understand why we lose our short-term memory first, and as things start to decrease and go back down, till when you get to the end stage, where it's really our body is just staying alive, and we've lost the ability to do all those other things. So people at mild dementia stage just have started to lose the outer levels of the onion. They start to have moderate difficulty with problem solving. They really cannot function independently in the community. They may be able to do highly routine things in the community, but they don't necessarily do a great job of it independently. They may need more help with going to the doctor, or they may forget to go to the doctor because they're having trouble with time management and planning things. You call and say, hey mom, remember to go to the doctor, and then she forgets to go to the doctor because she didn't build in enough time to actually get to the doctor's appointment. So this starts to happen at a mild dementia level. They start to have difficulty with their own daily routines and hobbies, especially things that are not very routine, very complex tasks. And this can happen at about for about 2 years. Stacy, this is where you think you are. I think it's a combination of both. Yes, as people start to go through from one phase to the other, they will have components of the one and start to move into components of the other one. So absolutely, people can have a combination of two different, or signs of both at the same time. Was that helpful, Stacy? Just give me a shout back out if you think if that answered your question. That would be wonderful. And my other daughter's home. Yay! Thank you, Stacy. Thank you for letting me know. Hi, Estelle. She was not at home yet, and her mother was like, she's not home yet. She's not home yet. All right, thanks, Barbara. Thanks. I'm glad that was helpful. All right, so moderate dementia. Here's moderate dementia. This is where we start to have way more profound memory loss. and people are only retaining what we call highly learned or highly valued information or materials. And so sometimes it can be very interesting because people will eh, be able to have like a really um, for example, somebody who was a pianist may be able to play the piano, but they can't remember what they had for breakfast because it was a highly retained activity that they had. Um, they the more routine and familiar things are, the easier it's going to be for us to remember to do it. So for example, we all have routines, right? Routine is our friend. So the more we keep a functional routine throughout our day, it helps to keep us on track. So when we start to lose our memory, it's the highly retained things that stay for the longest. These people start to really have trouble with time and place. They don't necessarily know where they are. Like in the hospital, when we test people, I do a quick little 6-question cognitive screening on every single person I meet. And the first 2 questions are what year is this? And then the second one is what month it is. So when people start to lose the ability to tell you what year and what month it is, I'm less concerned about day of the week. I'm certainly not at all concerned whether people know that it's the 16th versus the 17th of the month. Those are not that big indicators of trouble, but not knowing what the year is and not knowing what the month is tends to be a big problem. And the other one that tends to be a big indicator is if people don't know where they are. Like if they don't know that they live in South Carolina or that they live in Los Angeles, California, that starts to be an issue. And between moderate to severe dementia, people start to lose that ability. They have impaired judgment and they cannot handle problems. So when things happen out of the routine, they don't know what to do. As long as everything, and this is, and we'll see this a lot, and a lot of my therapist friends, and I know there might be some people who are therapists on here who are watching, but this is where driving becomes an issue because driving is actually a highly learned skill. We don't think about it once we have learned how to drive. We're taking in a lot of information as we're driving, but it is a highly learned activity we have. And so people will still, with moderate dementia, be driving a car, and their families will be saying, hey, but they're fine. They can drive around town. They can get to the grocery store fine. They can find their way back. The problem comes in if there's a roadblock or an accident and they have to take a detour. They cannot find their way home. They will get lost and they will keep going. And I kid you not, I have had patients who their family members have found them 2 hours away from home where they ran out of gas at a gas station. At least they realized that the car was out of gas because that's a learned skill too. Um, and they pulled up to a gas station and the attendant saw that they were very confused, called the police. The police found out where they were and brought them to the hospital. So yes, and difficulty handling problems. They have little to no independent functioning at home. They can do some simple chores, things like folding laundry, maybe sorting some items in the kitchen, putting knives and forks together, things like that. And as their onions, going smaller and smaller, they'll have fewer and fewer interests. Their world is contracting. And this lasts between 2 to 4 years. And then the next phase is the severe dementia phase or the end phase dementia. This is people have totally no idea of time or place. They have no ability to solve problems. They have no ability to do anything outside the home. They require help with all tasks of daily living, bathing, dressing, food preparation. They oftentimes need help with their personal care, especially starts to have incontinence here. Moderate dementia people start to have more bladder incontinence. By severe dementia, people typically have bowel and bladder incontinence. So any questions on those 2 scales? Any questions anybody has regarding that? I'd be happy to answer them. And I'm going to take a quick little sip. And I see there's one Q&A on this one. Oh, that's a good question. I don't know why your loved one wants to go to the bathroom when they start eating. Do you, is it what kind of need to go to the bathroom? Is it bladder or is it bowel? Can you answer that? Did you hear me? Well, maybe we'll give her a second to get on again. Because sometimes what it might be is, and if you don't mind, if you go into the chat, that'll just make it easier for me. That way I only have one place I can keep track of questions. So my guess would be if it's bowel incontinence, it's just that the food might just be hitting her system, and then they will be able to do that. If it's bladder incontinence, if it's needing to go to the bathroom for bladder, maybe try to take them to the bathroom before you eat instead of when you put them down to start eating. So let me know if that answered the question. Stacy, I see you have another question. Okay, so Min has a question here. What is the appropriate time to think about moving them to the nursing home? That is a really great question, Min. That is a very difficult question to answer without a lot more information. There's so many different factors to it, and they're all individual. Every family is different. Some families are willing to provide 24-hour care for their loved one at home. I have seen people do that. And then some people are not able to have that level of care, but they require 24-hour care. So if that's the case, then moving them to a nursing home or to a memory care unit is the best option. So that I know that's probably not as specific as you'd like, but if you want to reach out to me after the webinar, you can message me or you can email me and we can get on a call and we can maybe talk about it. I'd be happy to help you problem solve it. All right, so Stacy asked, what about urinating on the side of the bed after waking up um, at early in the morning, at night or early in the morning? So a lot of times people start to lose their ability to control their bowel and bladder, and you hate to correlate people with dementia as somebody who has a certain chronological age. But by the time people start to get to this point where they are having bowel and bladder incontinence, you have to think about them as between the ages of 3 to 4. And so if you want to think about the stages of dementia or people improving, when we're born, we're babies, we eat, we drink, we learn to sit up, we hold our glass or cup, we start to do things, we start to walk, we start to be able to control our bladder first, and then we be able to control our bowel. And by the time we're 3 to 4 years old, we're entirely continent. By the time we're 3 to 4 years old, we can go pick out clothes, right? You let your children when they were little go pick out their clothes, but they wouldn't necessarily pick out the right clothes for the season. They wouldn't pick out the right clothes for the temperature outside. And so they would, they're going through those phases. So that's like the moderate phase of dementia, and that's where people start to have bowel and bladder incontinence. So a strategy that you can try for that is to start to limit fluids around 7 o'clock at night, not to give people too many fluids later in the day. They need hydration, absolutely. We need to make sure they get enough to drink, but we want to do it earlier in the day, and then we want to start to taper it off around 7 o'clock at night. When they go to bed at night, if they go to bed, at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock at night, that's an awful long time until 6 or 7 or 8 o'clock the next morning to not be getting up and moving around and going to the bathroom. So maybe you can try a strategy of waking them up in the middle of the night and just taking them to the bathroom, just like you did with your children when they were little and they weren't able to stay dry overnight. You wake them up right before you went to bed. You didn't wake them up all the way. You took them to the bathroom, they peed, you put them back in bed, and they slept the rest of the night. So that's definitely a strategy. So how does a fall, Mariana, how does a fall and a new level of mobility fit into the moderate severe dementia? So what oftentimes happens, or what you will see happen, Mariana, and I know that this is probably something that we kind of probably saw with Aunt Aggie, is that people have So our brain is phenomenal. We have the ability to use our environment to cue us and keep us on track. So when a couple of things happen, so we're in our own environment and we are using our routine and familiar activities to keep us on track. Um, I know your particular circumstances, so if it's okay, I'm going to kind of speak to them. But Aunt Aggie, you would go down and you would see her certain times of the day, and she kind of kept her days on track with that. And then you had your accident, and then she fell in that same period of time. And it wouldn't surprise me because she wasn't eating or drinking as well because she just wasn't eating or drinking as well, that she might have had a little bit of a UTI at that time, and then she had to fall herself. And then you take somebody out of a very familiar environment and you put them in the hospital and anesthesia and so on, and something that was a moderate dementia maybe turns into a severe dementia because all of a sudden their brain cannot compensate for it anymore. So yes, Stacy, this will be, you can watch this again later. There will be a replay. It'll go out to everybody after the webinar, okay? So Mariana, I hope that answered that. So yes, moderate dementia can turn into severe dementia overnight. Let's see, there's another question over here. Oh, Stephen, that's a hard question. That is a very hard question. How to tell your loved one they have dementia? Well, sometimes you can just I don't know. You don't actually. I don't know. I think every person is different. My grandmother. I don't know that we ever actually told my grandmother that she had dementia. My there that is very, very hard. And I know your circumstances a little bit too. So hopefully we can talk about that at a different point. But I'm going to go on. I'm going to go on with this. So here are the 6 tips and tips. Let's try that again. Here are 6 tips and techniques for moderate to severe dementia. So the first one I'm going to talk about, I think, is probably the most important thing. And this is what I call the caregiver hierarchy. And then we're going to talk about cueing and prompting, or the behaviors, or how to kind of help with some behaviors. And then we're going to talk a little bit about remote monitoring and how to access remote monitoring, because like I said, there are people who are staying at home, who have moderate dementia that need supervision, and even though it's not ideal, it's certainly possible to keep somebody at home with using some remote monitoring systems. Um, this is my fun one. We're going to show you how to change a pull-up without actually taking off your shoes or socks. We're going to talk about sleep tips and techniques, and how to get somebody to let go of something when they've grabbed it and you need to get them to let go, because in the later phases of dementia, when people are at those end phases, they grab something and you cannot get them to let go. So having a strategy of being able to get yourself out of a situation, like if somebody grabs your arm or your hair, which is what we did. So let's talk about the caregiver hierarchy. So the first thing that we're going to talk about tonight is that people have a tendency of actually flip-flopping this. So if you think about any kind of hierarchy, like what's the most important thing? Food, shelter, clothing, right? And then after that, you get into the other stuff like leisure activities and so on. So most of us did Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So food, shelter, clothing is the basis. Well, the household is the basis first. The household has to function first before you put your loved one. You can't have your loved one's needs be met first. You have to do the household first. Then after that, it's not your loved one, it's actually you. You have to take care of you first. If you flip-flop this and take care of your loved one, and then you try to take care of yourself, you're not going to be able to do this. So the hierarchy, this is probably the most important thing that I want anybody to know. in this webinar tonight is if you are taking care of somebody who has moderate to severe dementia, you need to make sure that you take care of the household first, and then yourself, and then your loved one. Think about being in an airplane. Most of us have flown. Most of us haven't flown recently, but most of us have flown at some point or another. And when you're on an airplane, you know, the air hostess will say to you, or flight attendant, whatever they're called these days, they will say to you, put your own mask on yourself and then on your child or on the child that you're flying with. The reason for that is you're no good to that child if you pass out and they have the mask on and they can't help you. So household first, caregiver second, then your loved one. So what I tell my patients when I work with them is when you're starting this journey, you are in this as a marathon. This is not a sprint. You have to make sure that you build in respite care to yourself right from the beginning. And so people have resources available to them that they don't think about. If you go to church, there's always people in church who are willing to help you. They may not know that you need help, so you have to ask and you have to be specific and you have to say, I need somebody to come sit with my mom for 3 hours on Wednesday afternoon from 3 to 6 so I can go do this or go to the movies or whatever it is. Build it in routinely from the beginning and make it a habit. Don't wait until you burn out to build in respite care for yourself. You have to take care of yourself first. My husband and I took care of a gentleman who required 24 hours supervision. It's probably been about 15, 16 years ago, maybe even longer. And that was something that we learned. He needed 24 hours supervision, and I did not know this because I'd never taken care of somebody in my house before. And we did not build in respite care for ourselves, and it was very hard, and it was only a month, actually 2 months. So you have to build it in from the beginning. You have to make sure you take care of yourself first and then take care of your loved one. So here's a quick little case study. I had a gentleman, his name is Ronald, and he lived with his sister. He still lives with his sister. And he is at the severe dementia phase. He is still able to do some of his own routine self-care skills, things like she reminds him to take a shower. He goes and takes a shower. She's quality control, make sure he's taken care of. But he only uses single words, and he was not able to follow verbal cues anymore. He needed pointing cues like there's the bathroom, those kinds of things. And so when I started working with his sister, I didn't work with him as much, but I worked more with her. She had no respite care built in, and we really discussed it long and built in some strategies for her so that she could help change her priority and understand that the household needed to be able to function first and then built in respite. Most states and the Alzheimer's Association does have some money available to respite care. And so I know in the state of South Carolina, it is accessed through the area agencies on aging. And so it would be helpful to people to maybe reach out if you're in the United States and see if is any respite care available in your communities. A good place or a good resource to try to access is I would call a hospital and I would try to get hold of somebody in case management in a hospital system and see if you can ask questions about where to go because they have the local resources available. And so after we built in the respite for her, Ronald was able to stay at home with his sister, which was a big win. All right, so we're going to talk about a little bit about cueing and prompting. Let's talk about cueing and prompting and behaviors. So all behavior, every single person's behavior, from a 2-year-old child throwing a temper tantrum to a 90-year-old person with dementia throwing a temper tantrum, all behavior is trying to communicate something. So the first thing I want people to know is that typically there's the ABCs, or I call them the BDAs, before, during, and after. So there's something that happens before the behavior, right? So typically a child who has a temper tantrum, we'll just use a child because that's kind of easy for me right now. A child who has a temper tantrum might have had a temper tantrum because mom said, no, you cannot have that toy. right? So the child has a temper tantrum. Well, what's the after? Well, we might get a what we called the 5-point plan in our house when my children were growing up, or timeout or whatever it is. So the same thing with adults who have dementia. Um, their behaviors. So what happens with dementia is people have lost the ability to communicate well with one another, and so their behavior is because they're trying to communicate something that they cannot. I'm tired. I'm hungry. I'm hurting. I'm overwhelmed. I'm bored. I can't tell you how many people's houses I go into where they're in a dark room and the TV's on and they're just sitting there, and there's no stimulation. Television is not stimulation, people. It is just noise. Um, and they're bored or they're overstimulated because the television's going. So there's always something that happens before the behavior. Then there is the behavior itself, which is them trying to tell you, I'm hot, I'm cold, my clothes are uncomfortable, I have an ingrown toenail, I need to go to the bathroom, I'm constipated. Behavior always has something that comes before. So before, during, and then afterwards. The afterwards are like the consequences of the behaviors. So if you have people that you're living with that are having some behaviors, start to diarize it and see if you can figure out what happened before, what are they trying to tell you, and then try to see if you can change the behavior that way. So cueing and prompting, back to cueing and prompting. So there really are three types of cues and then combination of those. So one type, the one that when people are needing, when they have more and more trouble with communicating, they need physical touching cues, right? So that's when you come up behind somebody and you touch them on the shoulder and say, come, let's stand up and come with me. A verbal cue or a speaking cue, something to the effect of, let's go to the bathroom. And always, I caution my family members, my patients and their family members, be careful what you say to your patients, because if you think about it yourself, if you ask somebody a question, do you want to? Do you want to go to the bathroom? And they really need to go to the bathroom because they haven't been in 5 hours. And they say, no, I don't want to go to the bathroom. Well, now we got us a problem because we asked an adult a question because we want to treat them like they're still an adult. I don't want to treat them like they're a child. So you say, do you want to go to the bathroom? And they say, no, I don't want to go to the bathroom. Well, now I got a problem or I got a fight on my hands. So be careful of what you're saying or how you're saying it. You want to consider changing what you say to saying it's time to go to the bathroom, or let's go here, or come with me, instead of saying, do you want to do something? And then there's a pointing cue, or say, let's go there, let's walk to the bathroom, let's go there. And then combination cues or combination prompts are obviously doing all three together. What I would really like to caution people about with cues is people with moderate to severe dementia really take sometimes 30 to 60 seconds, 30 to 60 seconds to process what you've said. So I talk a lot, I talk fast, I talk a lot. Um, but with people with moderate to severe dementia, I've learned that you really want to do less is more. You want to make sure that you give them one cue, one prompt at a time, and then give them time. I had a gentleman with vascular dementia in a nursing home that I worked with that I was able to sit up by myself on the edge of the bed. Everybody's like, how did you get that done? Because he was rigid and difficult to move. And I'm like, I just took my time. But when I sat him up on the edge of the bed, I was able to get him to stand up with me. And it was really interesting because it took almost a minute from the time I told him, let's stand up. And I just stood there and waited for him. And he was able to stand up without a lot of help. He needed help, but not as much help as what I would have if I had been telling him, let's stand up, and trying to make him stand up when he had not really processed the information before. So up to 30 to 60 seconds sometimes after you give a person a cue or a prompt before they may actually respond. So when we have verbal diarrhea, and we keep telling them more and more and more things, and they're still trying to process the first thing that you said, you've totally lost them. So more is not necessarily better, less is more in cases like this with people with moderate dementia. So this is another quick little case study I wanted to talk about. I had a gentleman, and thankfully he is now in a memory care unit in an assisted living. I went to go see him in home health, and his name was Joseph, and he had severe dementia. He lived alone in an apartment. He had been living one place, and they moved him into a new apartment, and it was a one bedroom apartment with a living room and a kitchen, and he got lost in his own apartment. The bathroom door was closed, all the closet doors were closed, and I said to him, I said, take me to the bathroom. And the man had to literally open every single door in the apartment before he could find his way to the bathroom. So we want to make sure that when we're at this point, when we have severe dementia, people at that level should not be living alone. They are very, very, very lost. All right, so the third tip of the evening, I'm going to take me a quick little sip of water, maybe, if I can get to the water. Any other questions while I'm taking a sip? Thanks, Barbara. Um, all right, can you guys still hear me okay, since I moved the microphone? All right, so let's talk about monitoring. So this is something fun and something a little bit new. There are new ways of actually monitoring some people who are living at home alone, that are non-intrusive. So you have what I call non-intrusive remote monitoring and then intrusive, and I'll explain the difference in a second. So non-intrusive remote monitoring solutions include an ability to be able to measure people's activities of daily living all by themselves without you being in the house. It does not use a camera and it does not use a microphone, and it is 100% privacy first for your loved one. So sometimes families have the ability, or they want to keep mom home for a little bit longer, and this may be a way of helping be able to check in remotely at any time. So non-intrusive monitoring systems, there's a picture of the router. It's a gateway that you plug in, and the kit comes with 5 different monitors that you can put on different things. One place that we've done this in, we put it on a chair because we want to make sure that the person's actually getting up off of their chair, because we don't know if they're moving. You can attach these to medication, like a medication dispenser box. You can put it on you can set up medication for a week. It goes to your cell phone. It's set up to your cell phone that you can monitor it throughout the day. Mom's supposed to take medicine between 8 and 10, and again between 10, between 2 and 4, and then again right before dinner, before bedtime, whatever. So you can customize this for their environment. They're waterproof. They can be attached to, we've had people attach them to shampoo containers in the bathroom because they wanted to make sure mom was actually taking a shower. Pick up the steam. You can put it on a stove. You can put it on a stove. It'll pick up when the stove's on, that there's a temperature change because of the change in humidity. And these are entirely set up to then go to a control person's cell phone and be monitored that way, so you can know what your loved one's doing 24 hours a day without actually being there and not having a camera on them. So this is a way of doing non-intrusive remote monitoring. So if you want more information about that, please contact me at my email address at thinkdifferentdementia@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to go into that with you. And now here's some remote monitoring solutions that are not non-intrusive. So the other one doesn't involve a camera or anything like that. And now these are involving a little bit more one-on-one. So a video monitoring, sometimes we put video monitors in people's houses that you can also synchronized to your phone. There is a stove shutoff switch that you can buy. It's about $200 that you can plug into your phone your stove into, that's synchronized with a phone, a smart app on a phone, and then mom forgets the stove on, and it'll send a message to Susie on the other side of town that says mom did not switch off the stove, which I think is a phenomenal thing. And then they make all the way from a Volkswagen Beetle to a Cadillac version of medication monitoring. There's things called pill packs, which you can get for people to be able to um, it goes to pharmacy, and it comes in a big roll, and it's Monday morning AM, Monday lunch, Monday dinner, Monday bedtime, all in a big roll, and all of their medication, including their vitamins, are put into one little pill pack, all the way to a separate little carousel type medication monitoring system that works on a Bluetooth, and so it can synchronize to a phone as well. But you have to walk into the room or into the person's house for it to actually synchronize to that phone. But then you'll get all of the data at once, and then anything in between, the least expensive ones run about $80 or so, all the way up to $700, which can be, pretty cost prohibitive, but it is a less expensive. Yeah, I know it's hard. It's definitely hard to monitor your mom's medication, but it's better than the alternative, Tanya, which is that she over-medicate and end up in the hospital because she broke her hip. So yeah, those are tough for sure. So meet Jean. Jean lives alone with moderate dementia, and she loves to garden. And so we came up with some solutions for her family using remote monitoring of medication, remote monitoring of the stove. Now, with the non-intrusive remote monitoring, you can put those sensors on the door as well. And so when the door is opened or shut, then it can send an alarm to your cell phone so that you can know whether or not somebody's actually left the house. Um, so those are some solutions. So here's my favorite one: how to change a pull-up without actually taking off your shoes and socks. So not to shock anybody, but there is going to be a quick little video of me doing this. So
is that better now?
Pull it around the toes and around the heel, and you have on a pull-up or a pair of underpants without actually taking your shoes and socks off. And so that was what I wanted to show you for this little section.
Did
All
that
right,
fix
so
it?
in this little section, I'm just going to
Did that
show
fix
you
it?
real quick how you can actually change a pair of pull-up briefs.
All right, so
what did you say? Yeah, sorry, technical difficulties. Ha. All right, it's still plugged in. Can you still hear me? All right, so sorry. Do you want me to show the video again, or could you follow without it? So pretty much what I do is I pull off. I'm going to take my earphones off. So you just take your pants down to your ankles like you would be sitting on a toilet. And then you want to take the pull-up pants or the undergarments and run them through the bottom of the shoe and then you bring them up through the top, and then you run them through the bottom of the top of the leg, through the bottom of it again, and then up to your knees, and you have taken care of being able to do this without taking your shoes and socks off. So sorry about the sound. Learned something new. Um, it worked. It worked without the microphone earlier today. There we go. So I actually do this frequently with all my patients. Bye, Yolanda. Thanks for joining. You can watch the replay later. Um, this is a tip and a trick that I use with literally all my patients. So absolutely use this if or where you need to. And so now let's talk about sleep tips and techniques. So important to know, sleep comes in 90-minute cycles. So 7.5 hours a night is about perfect. 6 hours, 7.5 hours, or 9 hours. It is very important not to take a nap. Naps are horrible for people's sleep habits. It's horrible for our people with dementia, and it is definitely horrible for people who are taking care of people with dementia. So the most important thing that you want to know about sleep is that we have to have a good routine. Just like when our children were little, we had to have a good routine. We want to make sure that you get a lot of hydration first thing in the morning. You lose a lot of water overnight. People need to be rehydrated in the morning first thing. So before you drink a cup of coffee, actually drink a glass of water. You want to get out in the sunlight, both you and your loved one. This resets your circadian rhythm for every person. About 15 minutes per day, first thing in the morning will help to reset them. And exercise. Those three things first thing in the morning can make a tremendous difference for people with dementia. I cannot tell you how many people's houses I go into that are dark. Um, and so, yes, then we are going to talk about good sleep hygiene. So you want to have open blinds, light therapy. Have you guys heard of light therapy? So light therapy is a nanolight, a 615 nanolight that you use that helps for people to reset their circadian rhythm. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that you keep it on earlier in the day up to about 7:30 or up to about 9 o'clock at night. It takes about an hour and a half to wear out, and then you want to kind of start to get them into a sleep habit. You want to be very careful with people with dementia about melatonin. Melatonin actually can stimulate people with dementia, and I did not know that until recently. And so one of the big things that helps for people with sleep is magnesium. And so there you can make what's called banana tea. So you take a banana, you wash the banana, you cut off the ends, you cut it in half, and then you take about 2 to 3 cups of boiling water, and you boil the banana in the hot water for a couple of minutes, and then you steep it in and like make a tea. You don't eat the fruit, you throw it away, but most of the magnesium is actually in the banana peel. And so once you have done that, you can drink the tea with a little bit of honey, a little bit of lemon. So go ahead and try that, and we'll see what we can do regarding that. So sleep is very important because when we sleep, that's actually when our brain repairs itself. And so don't take a nap during the day. And you want to make sure that you get a lot of light. Take people outside. Sunlight is very important, both for vitamin D and a lot of other reasons. So yes, so develop good sleep habits and good sleep routines. I met a patient by the name of Lizzie. I'll never forget this. She had tremendous trouble sleeping at night, but every time I'd go into the house was as dark as it was terribly dark, and nobody would ever open the blinds. And so Lizzie had no idea whether it was day or night. And so obviously she'd sleep throughout the day and then she'd be awake at night, and nobody could understand why this was a problem. So trying to get some better sleep techniques and sleep habits in the house was very important for Lizzie. And so how do we let things go? So here's another video. So this time I'm just going to talk over the video. When you have somebody, what you're going to do, if they grab your hair and you want to grab you, you want to make sure that you don't pull away from it. You go closer to the person. Then you want to take your hand and you got to bend their wrist. So when you bend their wrist, they will open their hand. So there, and I'll do it over here on the camera. So when somebody grabs something and you cannot get their hand open, when your wrist is bent, you can't hold on to anything. Your fingers open in essence. So you can hold it like this. And so what you want to do if they have a hold of something is you want to push their wrist down whichever way you can, and then get your fingers under their hand to get it open. So those were the 6 tips and techniques. Lori says, my husband is in the moderate stage, and from about 7 to midnight, he will not put on pajamas, and he spends these hours searching for things and shuffling through drawers. So Lori, have you tried to maybe see if, you know, one of the I asked a question on one of the therapist websites about, you know, what's the best techniques they've given their people with dementia, and one woman said what she tells people is get to the so what response. Is it really, you know, so what if he's not wearing pajamas, or, you know, he doesn't want to get into his pajamas? Can we just put on comfortable clothes that he can sleep in so that we don't have to change clothes twice a day? Are there other things that we can do? Is he bored at night? Is he trying to go through things and he's bored, and maybe giving him something like a meaningful activity may help? Those are just some suggestions. And then your mom recently diagnosed with dementia. She's at home, but she insists that she wants to go home. So asthma, I hope I said that right. So oftentimes, if you think about it, their world is shrinking, and so they're losing the newer things and they're going back to older stuff. So when she's saying she wants to go home, she might be remembering something else from her past. And so, you know, just the best way to do it is just reassure her she's safe, because she may not feel safe right now. And so just tell her, you know, she's at home. It doesn't help arguing with her. If she says, I'm not at home, don't say she's at home. Don't argue with her about it. But maybe just say to her, but, you know, you're safe. We're safe here. You know, we've got this. You know, ask her questions. See if you can find out what's going on in her mind. So here's the dementia roadmap. So we're going to talk about that real quick. I don't want to take up everybody's time too much, and I apparently talked too long. So what I've developed is a program that has 2 different phases. There's a severe dementia and a moderate dementia phase, but each of them have these 9 modules. So the module 1 is the deep dementia dive. It's the newer research and talks about everything you need to know about how the brain works, how, you know, how our memory works, and all the anatomy and physiology and all the nerdy types of things that most of us don't care about anyway, but I love it. So we talk about how, you know, just everything dementia related, all of the different types of dementia, everything like that. Then module 2 is all things bathroom related. We'll talk about everything regarding toileting and modifications to bathrooms and adaptive devices for the bathrooms and incontinence issues, and each one will be broken up into, you know, the moderate will be in one and the severe will be in the other one. Then module 3 will be feeding and grooming issues, because those are different for each of these different phases of dementia. Module 4 will be dressing challenges. So it'll talk about, you know, how do we keep our person with moderate dementia still being able to dress themselves? What kind of things do we need to do? How do we present it to them? How do we change it? Module for people with severe dementia is how do we help get them dressed? What's the easiest techniques to do that? Module 5 is going to be medication management and strategies. Mom doesn't want to take her medicine. How do I get her to take her medicine? Some ideas regarding that, some ideas regarding swallowing and things when people start to have a hard time with that. Um, Module 6 is anything exercise walking related and adaptive devices for walking, things like walkers and wheelchairs and all of those kinds of things. Module 7, we're going to go into everything regarding communication. How do you communicate with people with dementia? How do we talk to them about, how do we listen? How do we cue them? How do we do all of those kinds of things? Module 8 is where we kind of split up a little bit regarding moderate and severe dementia, because people with moderate dementia can still live alone. People with severe dementia really practically cannot be living alone anymore. So it kind of splits out a little bit there. But how can we get 24-hour supervision for that person with severe dementia at home? Module 9 is going to be meaningful activities, my heart and passion. I'm an occupational therapist by background and training. So I want people to have meaningful activities to stay engaged. How do we re-engage people's brains? How do we keep them as independent as we can, regardless of the fact that they have dementia? And Module 9, Module 10 is going to be some bonus materials. We'll talk about the bonus materials next. I mentioned Christine. Christine is a lady I have met through the internet recently. We've messaged numerous times back and forth. She is taking care of her mom in South Africa, in Cape Town, and Christine was one of the reasons I got motivated to do this when speaking with her, because I realized that she has absolutely no resources available to her, and here I live in the United States and I take this for granted. And I'm from South Africa originally, and so I thank Christine every single day that she has motivated me to start this process to make a difference in people's lives who have dementia all over the world and not just in the United States. And then, so this is what I designed. This is called the Dementia Roadmap. Why the roadmap? It's designed for you to have accessible information on your mobile device whenever you want it, when you want it, where you want it, whatever time of day or night, whatever time zone you live, anywhere in the world. You just need a smartphone and internet access, and you only have to learn what you need to know right now. So the way the program is set up is you can pick. I just need module 7 right now. I need to go look at communication. I need to look at how somebody is going to be able to listen, or how to communicate with them. Or I'm really having trouble with bathroom issues. What do I do today? This is what I need to know today, not everything dementia. Everything dementia is overwhelming. It's taken me 30 years to learn everything dementia, and how you want it. It's proven, safe, reliable techniques available to that I've been using for 30 years in my career. So it is, like I say, like having a therapist in a box for people who have it. So, yes or no, this is something I want you to think about, whether this is something that you need or want. And so what's included in the Dementia Roadmap? It's 24-hour digital access to the Dementia Roadmap on a cell phone, laptop, or other smart device. A private Facebook group with weekly live question and answers. And I'm going to get this to be moderated by professionals like myself. The course is divided into 2 with 9 different modules, so you can have the moderate dementia or the severe dementia, or both together. And you can pick and choose what you'd like. And so the bonuses that I've included in this program are, if you're not on the same page, how do you get your loved ones on the same page with regarding your mom or dad? And so I've developed some questionnaires that have been used by professionals, that you can give your sister one or your brother one, and each of you fill out the questionnaire how you see mom or dad working, and then you can compare the two to make sure that you guys are on the same page, because sometimes people see people very differently. And it's interesting when you talk to people about their memories. My sister and I have different memories about different things. It's because we had different emotional involvement in it. So having your brother or sister sitting down with mom or dad's, observing them and writing it down, will give you an idea of how far off are you guys regarding how you see how mom and dad live or how mom and dad are functioning. Another bonus included are 50 ways to ease your own overwhelm book, how to take control back of your life and your sanity, to try to help people who are caregivers be able to feel like they're gaining control of their lives. There's a way to do we call my way document, which is a document that you write out before you start to have trouble, because we all do things differently. When I take a shower, I wash my right arm first, you know, my whatever. We all sequence things differently, and so when you're receiving care as somebody with moderate or severe dementia, and you can't tell somebody anymore, but I don't like you washing my face with soap. And every single time they wash their face with soap, and it upsets the person. So the doing a My Way document for yourself and working out beforehand, before you have anything happen, so you have the ability to tell people what you wouldn't be able to tell them usually yourself. Um, there's an 8-minute video called Develop Your Mind, how to explore how we ourselves can prevent some activities and then be able to develop your mind. And then there's a 30 assignments included, a downloadable workbook for to develop your own mind, and then how to get started with this program. And so there's where we are now, most of us, the people I've spoken to regarding this are typically confused themselves. They're resentful, maybe sometimes because they're taking care of someone else. They're impatient with their loved one and they don't want to be. They're disillusioned because their family's not on the same page. They're very stressed themselves and overwhelmed. That's where we are right now. That's what people tell me they are right now. So the next in this roadmap is getting people to being more confident and having more efficacy in their caregiving journey, having reliable, accurate information individually, I mean instantaneously available to you. And then the vision for the later is that being able to be in control of your caregiving journey will make it less stressful for you, with better interactions with your family because everybody's on the same page regarding what's going on, and using proven techniques that therapists use every single day that can encourage you to be able to be a better caregiver and decrease your stress. And so what's the cost of not doing or not using the roadmap? The cost of not using the roadmap's intangible. It's increased frustration. It can be tangible costs too. For example, increased medical costs for yourself or your loved one because they fell and they broke their hip, or you got your back injured. It's increased risk for injury for yourself. There's not. I love the dementia support groups, but it's we have to be cautious about the information, whether the information people are actually giving is accurate. So we need to make sure that you get the right information out there. And by not using something that's been tested by therapists means that ultimately you'll have less time to yourself. What's the value of the dementia roadmap? This is clinical knowledge used by therapists all over the world. It'll be accessible at any time, any place. You only need your smartphone or a smart device and the internet, and you can do this at your own pace whenever you want, because the big thing people have is that they tell me all the time, I can't get on a call because I'm taking care of mom. Well, now you can get the information when you need it, when it's available to you. What if you do not use the roadmap? Well, I'm sorry, I can't even read my own slide. What if you do use the roadmap? Well, it'll make you a better caregiver. It's bite-sized information for you to be able to access immediately. It guides you down this path. It'll show you what's coming up next. It's not a crystal ball. Nobody can tell you exactly what's coming up, but dementia follows a very set timeline and set process. It'll guide you through this, walk you hand in hand through this, and it is accessible worldwide and will help you gain control over your time and your own situation, because you'll have the information you need available to you when you need it, and not have to wait for somebody to help you with that. So how do we get started with this? So the complete roadmap is one payment of $498 or three payments of $166. If you only want one or the other, it'll be one payment of $297 for the moderate, or one payment of $297 for the severe dementia roadmap. So that is the information on how to access that is there, or you can go to or you can email me at thinkdifferentdementia@gmail.com, or go to this link and you can buy it now. And then as a motivation to take action today, if you sign up tonight on the webinar, you will get 1 hour free consultation with me individually over a Zoom call, which is a $200 value, in order for us to go through one-on-one regarding your loved one and their specific circumstances. So I'm going to open it up for some more questions. If anybody wants to ask more questions on the Zoom call. So I answered that one. So we'll just give it a couple of minutes for questions. If anybody has any additional questions, I'd be happy to answer them. If I didn't answer any of the questions adequately, please type them in again, and I'd be happy to take another shot at it. And we will see where this goes. But yeah, I've had fun tonight. I hope you guys have learned something new. I hope this was interesting for people, and I don't see anybody asking any other questions. Oh, thank you, Suzette. Glad you learned a lot. Anybody else have any questions, comments, clarifications? How to deal with agitation? Oh, that's a good question. So agitation can have a lot of reasons for agitation. So if you go back to the ABCs of behavior, or before, during, and after, agitation is just a way for somebody to try to communicate. There's something going on that they cannot tell you. They're trying to communicate with you, but they don't know. They cannot tell you what's going on. So you have to be a dementia detective, for lack of a better word or lack of a better term. You want to be able to try to figure out, are they hungry? Are they cold? Are they tired? Are they thirsty? Are they constipated? Do they need to go to the bathroom? The best thing to do with agitation is diarize it. Make a journal, a diary for yourself, and see if you can find the patterns, because there's usually a trigger, something causes it, then there's the behavior that they're doing, and then there's the consequence of the behavior, which is sometimes the agitation. What to do if your mom doesn't want to eat. So Eunice, when we get to the end stages or the later stages with dementia, oftentimes the last thing that they, the thing that they still maintain the best is they can taste sweet things. They don't taste other things as well. And so if you want to be able to help them a little bit with that, if they can, put a little bit of honey on it, make it sweet, put a if they're diabetic, put a calorie-free sugar substitute on. It looks disgusting, doesn't matter if it's meat, whatever, throw a little bit of sugar on. They taste the sugar, they taste the sweet, they don't taste salt and things like that anymore. If they're not eating because they cannot feed themselves anymore, then you have to feed them. When a person gets to a point where if you hold out a knife or a fork or spoon, or I can't see my camera right now, but anyway, if you hold out an item and if they don't take it, they have no concept that there's something outside of themselves. So if a person doesn't reach, if you hold something out and say, take this spoon, take this fork, take this marker, and they don't take it in their hand, they actually have lost the ability to feed themselves. You can try fingered foods. Sometimes they'll pick up finger foods. Remember when our kids were little, they used finger foods first before they got to a spoon or a knife or a fork. So we want to, if she's at that point, then you may have to actually feed her. How to make bath time a struggle. So back to my earlier statement regarding, so bathing is a big thing. Bathing can be a very big thing, because people, when they go back, we don't oftentimes know things that happened to people or loved ones in their past. They may have had a near drowning episode. If they're 90 years old, they never had a shower growing up. They took a sponge bath or they took a tub bath. They only took a bath once a week, and they did spit baths in between. So you want to be careful with bathing. If bathing is a struggle, you do not have to take a shower to be clean. You do not have to take a shower to be clean. That's one of the so what things. Why are we giving people showers? If it's a battle, if it's not a battle when we give them a sponge bath, then give them a sponge bath. As long as we're not smelling bad, as long as we keep our skin clean, you don't have to take a shower. A lot of people have a near drowning experience, and then you throw water in their face in a shower and they freak out. They don't like that. So you got to know how to try to take you got to know a little bit about their history regarding that, which is why the My Way, in the roadmap, coming up with a My Way, because if you diarize for somebody, I hate swimming because I don't want my face wet. Then taking a tub bath is better than taking a shower, or just make sure you don't spray the person's face. So Diane asked, how do you get your dad to take meds? So that's a really good question, Diane, and I'm not entirely sure. Is it because he's not able to swallow them, or he's spitting them out? Can you give me a little bit more information regarding the medication, or is he just being difficult? There are a lot of reasons why people struggle to take meds. Some meds don't taste good. So if you can give me a little bit more, just being stubborn. um, yeah, is there a way to backdoor it? Try to get him to, not make it confrontational as much. Maybe do one pill at a time. That's the other thing with people with dementia. Sometimes when you give them a lot of things in front of them, their brain shuts down. Can you put one pill at a time on the table and say, here, take that, and then, or try it on a spoon and put it on a spoon, or put it in applesauce. There are other techniques. There are lots of things we could try. Lori said, does dementia do something to their eyes? Sometimes, yes, it can. As people progress through dementia, their world shrinks. Their vision, they lose depth perception for sure. And oftentimes when they get to the moderate to severe dementia phase, they have an awareness of about 6 feet and then 3 feet away from themselves. You said your husband seems not to be able to read well anymore. Yes, I would guess what you're describing there is depth perception, and that he's lost his depth perception. And he may also not be able to see real well. And the other thing with dementia is, if their eyes change rapidly, sometimes it could be things like cataracts, there could be other reasons. And also, if somebody's having a hard time reading, or if they're having trouble with their cognition, then doing a vision test becomes very difficult, because it's a highly cognitive task. You have to be able to follow the directions extremely well when you go to the eye doctor. So I would guess, just off of what you're describing there, that he's having trouble with his depth perception. He cannot judge that, and that's very, very common. Well, we're at time. Unless anybody has any more questions, I'd be very happy to take another question tonight. If there are any more questions, I thank everybody for coming tonight. This was super fun. I really enjoyed myself. Apparently my computer is playing silly. If you have additional questions, I would please reach out. You can reach me on Facebook. You can reach me on Facebook. You can email me at thinkdifferentdementia@gmail.com. And then I'd love for people to hop on and consider the Dementia Roadmap, and we will be back. There we go. Thank you, Suzette. thinkdifferentdementia@gmail.com. And I am very glad to have been here tonight, and I look forward to seeing you guys again. And I've lost my computer screen over here. Let's see. Here we are. I don't want to share my screen anymore. And thank you so much, guys. Have a great evening. I appreciate it. I hope you guys learned something. I really do. Thank you.